Towards the end of my speech, I looked to the side of the stage and I saw this lady, and she was going like this, like she was very aggressively waving her hand from side to side, which I assume is the cut the microphone gesture. And I just kept talking, and I was like, well, I'm just going to keep talking until my microphone gets cut off.
Wow.
I'm just going to keep talking until my microphone gets cut off. Wow.
Wow.
I'm Jenna.
I'm Ashley, and we're Reverends.
Revs on the road. Hop in the car with us and come along for the ride.
As we step out of the pulpit and see what God is up to in the world.
We're not leaving the church.
We're just finding it in all kinds of beautiful places. This week we stepped out of the pulpit but stayed in Dallas, where we chat with Paxton Smith, recent graduate of Lake Highlands High School. You might know her from going viral with her valedictorian speech. Paxton talks about the power of going off script.
Revs on the Road is sponsored by the Pastoral Residency Program at Wilshire Baptist Church in Dallas.
The Big D.
The residency is part of Wilshire's Pathways to Ministry initiative. It provides recent seminary or divinity school graduates with 2 years of practical ministry and learning inside the church.
Residents,
like us,
are full-time ministers who preach, teach, and gain experience in all areas of church life.
Learn more about the Wilshire Pastoral Residency,
including how to apply,
at wilshirebc.org.
WILSHIREBC, wilshirebc.org. Jenna,
Ashley,
how are you feeling?
I am happy to be here with you. It's good to see you. I missed you last week.
Where'd you go?
I went to a camp with the teens, with all the teens.
All the teens.
Of America.
You were outdoorsy.
I was so outdoorsy. And I went with our youth group to their summer youth camp in Arkansas. And it was just a whole experience. I would like to first talk about the bunk bed situation because classic Jenna, I was like so excited to be on the upper bunk that I was like, you know, oh, it's okay. You take the bottom bunk, Leah. Like, I'll sleep on the top bunk, which I didn't even think I could have made a teenager take the other. And it was like midway through the week that another teenager was like, Jenna, why didn't you make us sleep on the top bunk? And I'm like, why didn't I? As I risk my very life in the middle of the night.
Yeah, what did you do? Like, what do you do when you have to go to the bathroom? Like,
it is so awkward, Ashley. You just somehow collect your body. Like, you just like trust that it will fall over onto the ladder. Like, you don't know if you should go forwards down or if you should turn around and just trust what's below you. Yeah, it was a whole experience, but I brought all my eagerness, and 5 days in, I was really, the foam mattress and the top bunk was, or not foam, but it was like a rubber, mattress, not super foamy.
Oh.
No, don't be mistaken.
I'm sure that was a gift, though, because I feel like youth and children need people who are eager to be around them.
Yes, yes.
I'm not always one of those people because I take that back. I love youth. Mm-hmm. I discovered this week through Creative Arts Camp.
I mean, you put up with me all the time. So it's like I'm basically a grown-up teenager, which we're going to dive into more in a minute.
It's sometimes fun to be around children that don't belong to my family, But I think they really need people who are eager to be around them. Mm-hmm. So I know that you're a gift to them.
It was a really impactful week of ministry. I haven't quite felt like I've made that kind of impact because I think they need the eagerness and the silliness and the top bunk and all that, but they also need people to see them, not just as kids, but and really hear them and hear what they're saying. And I think that's one reason why I had such a great week with them is like I really tried to listen to them. And the person we're hearing from today, the teenager, obviously has such amazing words to say. And I just think that so often society just writes off teenagers as, you know, emotional and annoying and privileged and all this, but you can just have a blast with them when you really see them and hear their ideas and engage with them and as humans, not just annoying kids. So
okay, I have never slept on a top bunk because I've always been afraid of them. I know you're shocked.
That doesn't shock me at all.
I know.
Not at all. There were so many times throughout the week where I thought of you and like what your reaction would be. It was comical. Like it would just be like, so the bugs, you couldn't have done there were like a lot of bugs. There were like a lot of mosquitoes and gravel roads and
it sounds very outdoors.
Emotions.
I can do other people's emotions.
Yeah, it was just campy. Like it was just like,
it sounds very outdoorsy.
Yeah. So we were outside a lot.
Yeah. So what happens on the top bunks? I feel like that's another world up there.
It is. It's another world, and it's closer to God, which is why I get up there. But the best thing of all was we had these bunk-to-bunk talks at night. And so the girls would look up, and they would look right across, and then I would be up on the top bunk. And sometimes these were dear, you know, I would kind of tuck them in and say, you know, sweet words and everything. But then at other times they would confess to me that they thought I was indeed a teenager before they knew who I was. And so one of my favorite memories of the camp, besides me doing the full Thriller dance for the talent show, but that's a separate story.
Of course you did.
But is they were like, Jenna, we just didn't know. We thought, who is this girl coming up in the youth group? We didn't know if you were a woman or a girl.
Do we still know?
No. I'm not a girl, not yet a woman. Yeah, so if you just can learn a lot of things, but we had a great time.
So I need to know more about that. What made them discover that you were an adult? Or do they still not know?
I'm curious about that too. Like, what was the turning point? You know, I think that once they saw me in leadership roles at the camp, it was determined.
Or did they think you were just a teacher's pet?
Could be. Because one of them was like, you know, Laura, I did know. Well, I didn't know, Maddie. Like, they were like going back and forth about, I think it was a recent discovery that I was a leader at the church, literally. And they were like, I thought you were so weird on your scooter, like riding around. And so they just thought I was this grown child that was riding on a scooter, which, you know, is kind of true. But they were precious. And just all the teen dialogue is precious. And we had a great week for sure.
So the youths aren't so scary.
They're not scary.
Yeah,
they're actually great.
I love that. I think the only thing, I just don't love outdoorsy stuff. Mm-hmm. I prefer indoorsy.
And I feel like introvert wise, you would have been real angry by the end of day 2 because there's no downtime.
Or I just would have like posted up with some knitting in a book and just been like, you can come sit by me and knit. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's another like fellow introvert youth that needs a fellow introvert adult.
Fall retreat. I think I'm looking at you. Here's looking at you. You know, I'll still sleep on the top bunk. Because, it is still kind of fun, you know, closer to heaven.
Well, we both spent the week at another camp, at an indoorsy camp, which is much more my cup of tea, at a creative arts camp. And I loved to see creativity blooming in children. I thought it was wonderful.
And tell our listeners about your magic moment with the silence book, because how Jenna's devotion went the day before is not how I think Ashley's devotion with the 80 children went.
I need to hear about your devotion.
So Jenna had this little microphone and she was like running around and like yelling at them about God being an artist, and like half the class was just eating pudding and disregarding me, and I was just like, but God is creative. God created me. Say it back. God created me. And it was chaos. It was total chaos. I tried to weave my way through the lunch tables, and you had a little bit of a different mentality, and I know you had them getting it together.
So apparently I have accomplished a new feat. I might add this to my resume. Got 80 children to be silent for 1 minute and 11 seconds.
Wow.
And I can't take all the credit. I used a book.
You know the moms out there are like, please.
It is a book. And the title of it is just simply Silence. We will
link it in the show notes.
Drop all the things. It is by the same person who produces Godly Play. And so this book, I'm reading this just to try to, like, you know, gather the children's mind. And so how long do you think we can be silent? And I pulled out my little stopwatch on my phone, and they went for 1 minute and 11 seconds.
Wow.
And it was glorious. But I
think their hearts and souls were prepped the day before.
Of course.
Yeah.
Obviously. I think, you know, children worship and learn in so many different ways that I think children need wiggles and silence. So I think there's space for both, you know. And what I learned and saw was wild creativity, and it's just fabulous. I was in a group that helped creative writing and kids coming up with comic books and finding characters, and you know, it was hilarious. 1 minute a kid got up and told this story of a superhero that was brave and wonderful, and the very next second a kid got up and told about his superhero that was the four-armed farter. I was like, yes,
that's your kid.
Yes, we need all of these things in our world. We need four-armed farters, and we need brave superheroes.
But I think sometimes I wonder why I connect almost better with children and teenagers than I do with adults at times. And I think it's because of moments like that where there's just not this facade. There's not this grown-up facade where you have to say the right thing, or it's just look, I just peeled my pudding and it looks like Jell-O, and hey, what's for dinner tonight? You know, like it's just this stream of consciousness. And it's like, oh, can I show you my artwork right now? And oh yeah, you can. And it's just it's just transparent and real, and there's not impressing and all the social things we have to do as grown-ups. And I saw that both at youth camp and this week, where we as adults can learn so much just about sort of letting our guards down and being real and playful and creative and
wildly kind. So the book is that I wish I could take credit for helping the kids find 1 minute and 11 seconds of silence, but I cannot. The book is called Silence, written by Jerome W. Berryman and illustrated by Lois Kilberg. And so it's just fabulous. And it really was helpful. But what I love about children, and it kind of piggybacks off of that and goes into this, is that kids don't come with a script. They just really don't. And so to see their kindness and to see their wild creativity was a gift, especially in the midst of our chaotic world, in our world that is sometimes so unkind.
Yes.
And you got to see the youth who have made it past a certain point where sometimes they're given a script and have learned a script and are learning what to throw out and what to keep. So yeah, that's...
Yeah, loved it. Loved my time.
And who's to say we can't ride scooters?
Worshipfully
As an adult.
Yeah.
As an adult.
We lose so much as we grow up. We lose our silliness and our vulnerability and our connection with each other and so many things. And so teenagers and kids are both looking for connection and love. And I really felt it was such an honor to build those relationships and see the impact that just, being a loving presence and showing kindness can have on someone's life. I know people that did that for me and how it shaped me. And
do you remember, so I know people always ask this question, but do you remember the names of the people who stick out to you, who were kind to you and were eager to be around you when you were a child and a youth?
Oh, yeah.
Who were they?
Miss Samler, my second grade teacher. Betsy, my youth minister at Second Baptist. Several teachers' names come to mind, but yeah, people that really, Betsy took me to coffee every 2 weeks forever and just got to know me. And now I'm getting to do that for teenagers. Right. And it's just so full circle to see the impact you can make by just saying you matter and I love you and I'm here for you, and the impact on a life that can make.
Absolutely.
So what about you? Who are yours?
Oh, I have so many. As a kid, I remember Miss Graves. She was the woman who sat with the three of us, my siblings and I, in church. My dad was on the chancel. He was the choir director when we were growing up. My mom's in the choir, of course. So she... Robin, she cared for us.
Robin needs to make a special guest appearance.
She might.
At some point, y'all.
She might. And Miss Graves kept us full of peppermints and was so kind. Miss Pat was my Bible drill and Sunday school teacher, who... what I remember is they were eager to see us and loved being around us and wanted to hear stories from us. Mr. Bill and Miss Dorothy were, again, like my Bible teachers at church. In the youth group, the one that sticks out to me is Miss Janet. I babysat her kids, but I always remember sitting on her front steps before I would drive home, and she would always ask me what was going on at school. And I knew that I could actually tell her without getting judgment. So these, I remember these people.
This is ministry for sure.
It is. So I'm thankful for those people, and I want every kid everywhere and every youth to know that there are people in this world who are eager to be around them and
hear them and love them and value them in faith communities.
Absolutely.
As such important parts of the heart of a church. Right. So important to be formed and shaped, and that we can learn from them and not just lecture them.
I won't be getting on a top bunk, but...
Hey, you're lost.
But I will be eager to be around them, to show them that I'm eager. So I'm so glad y'all are on the road with us this week as we listen and learn from the brilliant, wise, and wonderful Paxton Smith about going off script.
A young person who is shaking things up and really changing the world and proving this point of the value of our younger leaders.
The Revs on the Road podcast is powered along by Good Faith Media. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org.
Ride along with the Revs on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Revs on the Road.
And hey, give us a honk by liking the podcast on your favorite platform.
All right, it's time for a red light rant.
This is a moment where we pretend we're in traffic, as you do as you're at a red light and you practice a speech in your rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. So this week for the red light rant, Jenna, I want to talk about what it means to care for people even when you might not understand them. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between understanding and caring, and you can love and care for someone even if you might not understand yet. And that for me came into play when I was learning to understand the importance of pronouns. I learned from why it's important as a cisgender woman to use and disclose my pronouns as often as I can. So that is what I want to talk about today. I say that because I've had questions before from people everywhere who ask me why, as a cisgendered woman, I try to put my pronouns on things, name tags or email signature, and their Instagram has an option now for you to put your pronouns. Mm-hmm. And I've thought a lot about it. At first I was like, well, it's not really necessary. I'm a woman, can't you tell? And that was my response at one point. Mm-hmm. And so I learned from a beautiful trans woman that I was working with, that when I said, can't you tell? I'm a woman, can't you tell? That statement is dismissive of the experience of so many trans lives and gender nonconforming lives. And I didn't realize that. Mm-hmm. So that was a learning experience for me. For me to say, I'm a woman, can't you tell? It should be obvious. Mm-hmm. And so I always go back to this thought of when you know better, you do better. Mm-hmm. And I'm not perfect. Good Lord. Mm-hmm. I mess up all the time. We all do. So I try to remember when I have the chance, when there's an opportunity. This is a relatively new thing for our culture to pay attention to pronouns. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of confusion.
Yes.
And lack of understanding. But I think what I like what you said is like, you don't have to understand fully to show compassion.
You don't have to understand it to care. Mm-hmm. You can not understand it and still care mm-hmm. and love. And to say, I've heard so many people say, I just don't understand. Okay, well, shh. Mm-hmm. Maybe don't say that out loud and try to learn and mm-hmm. try to love. You don't have to understand to care.
And whether that's, racial trauma or sexism or anything, we assume we have to understand that lived experience to show
to care.
When we don't, we just have to say, you know what? I'm new to this and mm-hmm. I'm learning, but I care for you right. and I want to know more. Mm-hmm. How can I learn more?
And if somebody has looked you in the face and looked you directly in the eyes and says, what you just said diminishes my story, and here's how you can change it. And if that thing is by adding pronouns to your name tag or your name or your email signature, you better believe I'm going to do it. And that's what happened to me. And so that's why I do it. That's mm-hmm. my why. Because there was a time when I said, I don't understand what the big deal is. Why do I have to do this? And somebody looked me in the face and said, because when you don't and you assume, it diminishes my story and it hurts me. And so
and so many of our, especially our young babies and babies and gabies and all the, you know, they're needing to be seen and affirmed and loved and valued, and it means the world when you show that respect and that empathy.
Yes.
And what it does too is it makes it less about, you know, pointing out the different ones, right?
Right.
And making a just society where we are all at the table together, and it normalizes that experience.
Well, and it makes gender nonconforming, and it makes the trans experience not such an anomaly. If cisgendered people also include and offer their pronouns. And then, I mean, I'm still learning. We're all learning.
But come on, people.
But come on.
Because it matters.
You don't have to understand to care. That's my rant.
Agreed.
You do not have to understand to care.
To start to show some signs of caring.
Period.
You know what, Ashley?
What?
We're getting low on gas.
And it's expensive.
Yep, but we've got help. Let's fuel up with this word from our sponsors.
Second Baptist Church in downtown Little Rock recognizes the God-given gifts and graces in women clergy, just like Jenna and Ashley. And we believe the way of Jesus demands courageous conversations like the ones you're hearing. Second Baptist Little Rock is a proud sponsor of this work. Check us out at 2bclr.com.
I'm Reverend Starlette Thomas, a womanist in ministry and the host of the Raceless Gospel podcast from Good Faith Media. It's season 2, and we're still talking about that taboo trinity: race, religion, and politics. This season of the Raceless Gospel has 8 episodes, 8 podcast church services. The doors at this church are open, and we're going to talk about the sticks and stones we carry faithfully that break the skin and bones of Christ's body. And on each episode, we're joined by those who bring perspective and insight as to how we set these broken bones and perhaps make things right. The Raceless Gospel Podcast. 8 episodes released every Sunday beginning July 18th. I'm your podcast pastor, Reverend Starlette Thomas. Join us as we discuss the church in North America's bodywork. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org.
So we are Revs on the Road. We're back again, and we are on, not really on the road this week. We're kind of staying in town in Dallas, talking with Paxton Smith, and I have to admit that you've been one of my sheroes lately. I've been fangirling you. So Paxton has been one of my sheroes since I saw her valedictorian speech that went a little viral. It's been a viral sensation. So we had to talk to her to talk about what it means to go off script. So we are really excited.
Yes, so excited to be with Paxton, and because we're so close in close circles, I was like, we've got to find a way to talk to her. So I'm so glad you said yes. Paxton Smith is an 18-year-old, still 18, or has she turned 19 yet?
I'm still 18.
18-year-old recent graduate of Lake Highlands High School here in Dallas, and was her class valedictorian, and shocked the world with an amazing, passionate speech that is really transformative for our state. And so we are so excited to have her here on the podcast.
Yes.
Paxton, how's life going since graduation? What have you been up to these days?
Oh my gosh, things have been so busy for me. So, as you guys probably know by now, I signed on to a book deal with D'Angelo Publications called A War on My Body, A War on My Rights. And that book,
Oh, we didn't know that. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So excited.
well, that book will come out in January of this coming year on the 22nd, the 49th anniversary of the Roe v. Wade ruling. And all of the proceeds, all of the profits will be going to a nonprofit in Dallas, Texas called the Athea Center, which aims to transform the Black community's relationship with their sexual and reproductive health by addressing reproductive oppression. So that's very exciting.
Yes.
I'm very excited about that project. It's going to cover a lot of people's stories from a lot of people who are from very different backgrounds to show just how deeply affected all of the people in America will be by legislation like the Texas Heartbeat Bill. So that's what I've been working on. And I've also been doing a little bit of speaking here and there and doing interviews like these. So thank you guys so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
I'm
it's
so
our
excited.
honor. It's our
January
honor.
2022, right? So we'll be on the
Yes.
lookout for that.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So
Just casual summer plans.
just casual, yeah. You know, getting a book to writing a book, no biggie. You know? I was like, yeah, I've been binge watching shows and you've been writing a book. Great. And that is why you're my shiro. So you said a phrase that I want to hear more about from you, reproductive repression. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that will tell us what is at stake here.
Okay. Well, I think one of the topics about reproductive rights that is brushed over pretty consistently is reproductive justice, which is that reproductive rights are so much harder to be able to access if you are not white and if you do not make a lot of money. And so in terms of reproductive oppression, it's essentially that once these rights are legal, and as they are legal now, they're not accessible to a lot of people, and the people that they are least accessible to are the people of color and are people who don't make a lot of money.
Wow.
And that's really glossed over in a lot of these talks about rights and heartbeat bills and everything going on.
Is the intersectionality that you have all kinds of systems of injustice that collide, patriarchy, racism, poverty, and how that comes together. Paxton, I know that for many of us, these issues become personal and we come to them for a reason. Is there a story or an experience that has made this topic so important to you? Can you talk about your journey for coming to this place of passion for reproductive rights?
I've always been a feminist.
Yes,
I believe in gender equality. And for as long as I can remember, I've always been pro-choice, because I think that if and when a woman decides to have a child, that should be her decision. It should not be the government's, and it should not be a stranger's choice. It should be that woman's decision. And so there really was no turning point for me. It's just always been very black and white.
For you and your values. Wow.
Wow. How has it been for you then? Have you always been in Texas?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my
was
next.
born and raised
Yeah.
here.
How has that played out for you in Texas? Because I know this Texas heartbeat bill is not uncommon. Like, this has been something that has been trying to happen for years.
Yes. How does Texas create a Paxton? That's what we want to know.
like
How does
and
Oh,
where
goodness.
and how have
you been
How have you
resilient through that?
how have you navigated through these Texas waters? And
Because we're just doing our best to get through. We're like, we feel like that's why we got to get on the road. Revs on the road, because it's pretty, the culture here is pretty, we can't even use one word for it, but How have you navigated that, Paxton? Have you had great influences from other communities and found places here in Texas?
Okay, well, it's hard to say. I grew up here, so this is my normal.
Yes.
This is what I've always known. I have very accepting and very open parents, and we have always been able to have conversations about anything, literally anything under the sun, even controversial topics. And even when we disagree on those controversial topics, we can still talk about them in a very comfortable and open way, where we try to understand each other's point of view. And I think that's really helped shape me into the person that I am today, and the ability to feel comfortable speaking my mind, because I know that at the end of the day, I just want to understand you and you just want to understand me. And also, it should be noted, I grew up in Dallas, Texas. Dallas. It is an incredibly diverse area, and there are so many different thought patterns here and ways of living here that I have been able to engage in and see firsthand and experience. So I think that's also contributed to my thinking.
Yes. Beautiful.
So I have to ask, what in those few moments right before you changed gears, before you flipped the script, what was running through your mind?
In the seconds leading up to the speech?
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh my gosh. Leading up to the speech, I was really dreading giving the speech because you guys are right. This is Texas, and this is a controversial topic in Texas. I don't think it should be, but it is. And so I imagined that I would have received a lot of fallout and a lot of hate for the speech that I was going to give. So it was not something I was excited to do at all. But I also was not nervous, because I felt very passionately that what I was doing, and I still feel passionately that what I did was the right thing to do. So in that moment, when I was giving the speech, my mind just went blank, and I was like, okay, we're doing this.
And then the epic, like, she pulls the speech out. Oh, it's just such a moment. It's amazing.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. And knowing it was the right thing to do. I think that speaks to sort of prophetic, being a prophet. I think that's, in that moment, that's what you were. You were a person leading the way, and saying the hard things, and that prophetic fire that allows us to do hard things in those moments in front of thousands of people.
And the
amazing.
fact that you say, I was not looking forward to that. I love that honesty. Because there are a lot of things that are really hard that we don't look forward to. And that speaks to your bravery. And I like to say when people say grow a pair, I really think of ovaries instead of.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it speaks to your ovaries.
We have a lot of pairs of things that
we do.
Give us power. Yes.
There's more than one set of pairs of things that
Lots
can
of
give
pairs.
you power.
Yeah. And I've talked with some people who were in the room and how powerful it was, and how the air just kind of got sucked up. And one friend described it as, the air just like left everyone's bodies and was just kind of above the room, and like, because people were just so shocked, But then I think what happened was, instead of booing, instead of the mic getting cut, there was a semi-positive response, it sounds like, or not overwhelmingly negative. No one cut your mic. No one. I think Ellen, one of my friend, my new friend, she said that there was like some waving down, and like you could kind of tell on the sides that some people were like maybe trying to like redirect you, but that didn't end up happening. And what was that? During the speech, were you afraid your mic would get cut?
I expected my microphone to get cut off. I did. I was actually, towards the end of my speech, I looked to the side of the stage and I saw this lady, and she was going like this, like she was very aggressively waving her hand from side to side, which I assume is the cut the microphone gesture. And I just kept talking, and I was like, well, I'm just going to keep talking until my microphone gets cut off.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm just going to keep talking until my microphone gets cut off. Wow. Wow.
So
amazing.
You've mentioned the community that you're writing this book for and with. What else is at stake for you here in this moment? We know that there's a heartbeat bill at stake, but what's behind that and beneath that bill?
Man, that's hard to say because there's so much nuance to the reproductive rights. Well, I guess I think the biggest thing I could touch on is just the state of the country right now and why bills like the heartbeat bill are being signed to law across the country. There are hundreds of abortion restrictions that have been put in place over the past 2 to 3 years in the United States to make abortion more difficult to access and just flat out inaccessible to so many people. And the reason for that is because the Supreme Court is now a conservative majority. And so these lawmakers are passing these laws that are unconstitutional or borderline unconstitutional with the hopes that law will be taken to court and they will be able to overturn Roe v. Wade. And in the next year or two, there are going to be some of those cases taken to the Supreme Court that have the potential to shift the future of women's reproductive rights, hopefully for the better, but it's very possible that that's not going to be the case.
Right.
Paxton, it's obvious that you're so smart and you're very intellectual in how you approach these. But one thing I loved about your speech is you said, if my contraceptives fail. I mean, it was the most vulnerable thing for a young woman to say, but it was important to your speech because you were putting yourself back in the narrative. And instead of talking about it in a really general intellectual way, you said, as a young woman, my dreams, my ambitions. I want you to talk a little bit about, in writing the speech, what was that like to put yourself in the topic, and how was it to be that vulnerable with all your peers and with your community?
Oh gosh. I really wanted people to know how it felt to have a right like that taken away from you. And I wanted them to feel the urgency and the fear that I felt, because maybe then they might understand exactly what's at stake and exactly the situation that so many people like me are being put in. And I think one of the strongest things a person can ever do for whatever argument, whatever side that they're taking, is share their own story and share how it makes them feel, because it's human and it's real and it is vulnerable and people connect to that. And so that's what I wanted to do.
Is be that vulnerable. Wow.
And I think that vulnerability in you sharing your story is part of what reached people. It's part of what grabbed me. You know, I was like, oh wow, she's up there and she's doing this.
And I feel like too, you know, there's different ways of speaking prophetically, but the ones that really land come from a place of love and understanding and personal transparency. And you're not yelling at people about how awful the state of Texas is. You're coming from anger, but from a righteous indignation and a place of love. And that's what really lands. You mentioned in another interview that you hadn't gotten much hateful feedback, and I'm wondering, has that changed? Have you had any people, you know, there's always the concern of safety, and I mean, people can really reach out with negative feedback. So tell us about how that's been. Has it still remained mostly positive?
It's almost all positive.
Wow.
I have received very, very little hate. I really still have not received very many hate messages. Most of the hate messages come up in the comments, but in terms of people who reach out to me through DMs or through text messages or whatever, there really are not very many negative things that people share with me.
Mm-hmm. How was school feedback? Tell us a little bit about what that's been like, just within your peers, teachers. What were they what were they saying?
There has been a lot of support from my school peers, a lot, and a lot from my teachers as well. Like any other regular group of people, of course, there are people who do not agree with what I had to say and were not pleased with what I had to say. So they have shared some things on social media, but not very much.
Mm-hmm. Good. And the school didn't like reprimand you or did they reach out to you or anything?
No.
Okay, good.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm gonna go track them down. I can crash a meeting.
So what would you say to somebody who like you felt like they had a lot at stake and wanted to go off script? What would you what would you tell them?
Yeah. What's the advice? How do we follow you in this way?
I feel like it happens a lot. Like we have one expected thing we're supposed to say, but this one burning thing that we really want to get out. And how do we get it out?
Mm-hmm.
My dad always told me when I was growing up to always do the right thing, even when it sucks. Always do the right thing. And so I guess my advice to somebody who was in my situation is that if you truly believe that is the right thing to do, and that there is no better time and place to do it, then do it.
Mm. And how have your parents been since? Have they been super proud and supportive or surprised?
All three of those.
Maybe nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably some nerves for your kid,
Did they know that you were planning to do that?
Yes, they did.
Good.
They were the only people I told.
Okay.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Because you didn't want it getting out, maybe, or, yeah. Wow.
Yes. I was afraid that if the school had found out beforehand, then they were 100% going to cut off my microphone as soon as I started giving the speech. So I decided just to not tell anyone and to not run the risk.
Mm-hmm.
That seems wise. Seems pretty wise.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Wise prophet among us. My.
I feel like you've given a lot of good advice to our folks, preachers and ministers, as far as speaking our truth and being brave. We always also like to ask our guests to talk to the church, capital C, so the worldwide church.
You might notice that we're not your average reverends in Texas, probably.
Right. So our question is, this is your pulpit. What do you want to say to the church?
We won't cut your mic off.
Ever.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's really hard to say. I'm not sure.
Fair enough.
I
think maybe what we can say is the church maybe just needs to pay attention to young prophets like you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And pay attention to what it means to go off script.
And follow your gut and follow that prophetic burning within you that tells you that no matter what I'm expected to say, I'm going to say the thing that is the right thing to say.
Absolutely.
Well, Paxton, it's been so awesome to talk to you. We encourage you. We cheer you on. We hope that you just keep following that burning truth within you.
Yes.
Because our world needs it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're still my shero. And tell us again what your book title is and when we can expect it out.
It's called A War on My Body, A War on My Rights. and it's coming out on January 22nd, 2022.
Perfect.
It is currently available for pre-order.
Oh,
yes.
Awesome.
Jump on it. Revs on the Road people. Pre-order her book. She's going to UT Austin. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Right.
Staying in Texas, which I'm so glad for. We're so glad you're going to stay in the state and be in our circles. And we have learned so much from you. Thank you, Paxton.
Thank you so much.
So we ask all of our guests a very important question. We say at the end of each episode, this is your pulpit. What would you want to say to the church? This week, Paxton told us that she needs some time to think that over, and we totally get that response. And so, listeners, we're turning over this question to you. After hearing this episode, what do you want to say to the church this week? Tag us on social media, comment on our posts. We really want to hear from you. And now we send you off with traveling mercies. Get back on the road with a little more courage to say the hard thing, flip the script, and shock the world with the truth your soul demands that you tell. Good trouble awaits you. Bye for now.
That's it for this week's episode of Revs on the Road, produced by Good Faith Media. Stop by at goodfaithmedia.org.
Revs on the Road is sponsored by the Pastoral Residency Program at Wilshire Baptist Church in Dallas.
Don't forget to check out Wilshire's nationally recognized model for excellence in clergy training. Learn more at wilshirebc.org.
Ride along with us,
The Revs, Ashley,
and Jenna on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Revs on the Road.
and give us a honk by liking the podcast on your preferred platform. Next week, we're stepping out of the pulpit and visiting the therapy space to talk about what happens when the church hurts and how to heal.
Join us as we step out of the pulpit, hit the road, and see what God is up to in the world.
We're not leaving the church. We're just finding it in all kinds of beautiful places.